Good. You're live.
Ready, live.
Dude, so walk on? Did you walk on?
I was a walk-on, yeah. Walk-on back in 06. I grew up in Waterford, Connecticut. Spent my whole life there. So fellow teammate Zach Hurd in high school, he was a scholarship guy, 6'7" lineman, recruited all over out of high school. And I was going to the camps and the Randy Edsel football camp in high school was super exciting. And I was bouncing around. I was doing like outside linebacker, safety, running back, tight end, and receiver.
Where do you play? Where'd you play when you were in Europe? What position?
When I got to Europe, I played wide receiver, but also because
fast.
No, that's the problem. That's why I was a walk-on.
That's why you were in Europe.
That's why I was in Europe. Exactly. Had the height, had the hands, the speed. It's just under what it needed to be, or over what it needed to be. If you're talking about 40 time. But yeah, I came to Uconn at tight end because that's what I played in high school. Connecticut, 180 pounds was a big tight end, and I was like, all right, so play tight end in high school, and then get to Uconn, and the next smallest guy has 35 pounds on me. The starters have 45, 50 pounds on me. I was like, all right, let's try to put on some size. Spent 2 years hitting the weight room, eating every single thing under the sun, like 6,000 calories a day, bulking in the summers. Could not make it over 215. Just tapped out. Like really, that was it. So then after 2 years, it was like switch to receiver. Okay, work on your speed. Really work on just getting as fast as possible. Cut the calories back, get strong and fast. Couldn't get fast enough. So I was right in that hybrid area where I couldn't quite make it all work. But I loved being a part of that team and really had a great time. So
that's where we are. Alex Molina, no longer a football player, but started out Uconn football. The big question is, did they have the DJ in the end zone when you were there?
The DJ. Well, the only DJ we had in the end zone was DJ Hernandez.
He was throwing the ball?
Yeah, throwing and running. He moved to receiver my senior year, so he was out there with us.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was great. He's a huge asset to the receiver room because he brought a depth of knowledge that I think we weren't really seeing the whole game like he was. And so he was able to translate a lot of that knowledge to us as players, whereas the coach would say something to us and we'd be like, oh, yeah, we get it. But then DJ came in and he was like, no.
Were you there when Aaron decommitted?
I was the same, I think it was the same year as Aaron, or maybe 1 year before. But yeah, we always knew that he wasn't going to go to UConn.
A couple of the guys always talk about the day Aaron Hernandez decommitted and like how, this just flurry of activity and coaches going wild.
Totally. I think that I remember hearing about him because I didn't attend the first summer. They brought the walk-ons in for camp and then a few of the walk-ons after camp, but I was first day of camp. So all that summer, I missed that first 2 months of drama. I also missed that first 2 months of working out. So camp was incredibly difficult, but that's when all of the decommitment happened. So it was right before I got there.
There you go. So you see his FX movie
I
coming
have
out?
not. I saw it's coming out. I saw it's coming out. Yeah, and yeah. So
is that the biggest thing in all of Connecticut football ever?
I mean,
it's got to be close.
Yeah,
right?
probably. I'd say it's brought more attention. I mean, that story, that family is everything's been attention. Whether it be good or bad. You would have liked it to be more good attention than bad attention, but
that's how
life.
Yeah, that's how that goes. But I mean, a lot of people argue with me about whether UConn can have a top tier football team. Yeah. And sort of the transformation of the way college sports is going.
Totally.
And I'm like, without a doubt, UConn could win a football national championship.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's one path.
There is a path. Yeah.
One clear path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I keep telling people it starts between Westport and Greenwich.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it actually starts getting into a conference that allows you to compete in the championship. Is there any doubt in your mind if UConn gets into a real conference in football that it will elevate to where that compete is?
No, I mean, I see no reason why it couldn't, right? It's building the right brand and being a part of the right avenue, so being in that conference. And then after that, it's who you're going to staff, what your coaching staff looks like, and slowly building and increasing your recruiting. And then, I mean, it has all the facilities, all the great fans. It's got everything it needs as far as that could be easily one of the top programs competing for the national championship.
Nobody believes me how wild the rent was.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Did you prefer Electric Blue or the Rent?
I mean the rent. Yeah. I loved it. I loved it. It was the time. I mean, selling out every single. So like I got there in 06 and we had like a 3-8 season, and then 07, 08, 09. Those seasons were every home game completely sold out. Everyone bought in. We were winning Big East championships. It was such a great energy, great time. There was an article that RG3 put out when he had just graduated, and he was like, the hardest spot to hear on the field in any of the places in the country was at the Rent, and he specifically said that. I was like, that was good. We had a good run. It was great.
Yeah.
No reason we can't bring that back.
No, I mean, there's a lot of steps that have to happen, but it's really remarkable how much the industry has changed and how much college football has become like where you're at now. I mean, it's entertainment. It's professional entertainment.
Absolutely now. Yeah,
and
a lot of big changes.
Like, can you remember those days of sitting in the locker room and like thinking about what am I going to do with my life? Like, did you ever think about it, or was it like you were stepping? Each step was a progression.
So I pretty much knew that I was definitely not going to have an NFL career. So that was already like, okay, I got to start thinking a little bit more practically about what I'm going to do with my time. And I was at that point, I guess, really just focusing on what interested me the most. And I was doing psychology for my major. And I was just kind of at that point really deeply interested in learning about people.
Did you care about school?
I did, yeah. I went to every class. I would make it a point to go, and it's the walk-on mentality. You know, we know we like to play the sport and we love the sport. There's passion, but we also know that the reason we're at Uconn is also to study. So,
who was your favorite teammate when you were there growing up? Growing up in those 18, 19, 20, 22 years, you know, those are fun years that formed you, and you guys had a crazy group of people.
We did. Let's see. I mean, my best friends there were my couple other walk-on buddy, Khalil Lane. He was a DB, and so we were always hanging out. Hurd, obviously the guy I grew up with, he was great and such a big personality in the locker room as well. My buddy Alex Polito, who I went over there to play in Europe with, and then I'd say like the king. He kind of felt like a mentor, an older brother. Was Tilo, Tyler Lorenzen. He was definitely like a guy. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's cool.
He is cool.
He is cool. He's super smart, great guy, and love having him around.
Tyler's always got something going, and like there is an exceptional group of people that came off of that squad.
Totally, many guys.
Yeah, so many guys, and a lot of guys that disappeared over time, and but just some really truly exceptional folks, and like the number of walk-ons, like the number of people that you guys had to recruit and bring through, and then end up in professional football.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like
it's a huge
Marcus
number.
Easley was. Yeah, I was with him every step of the way. We walked on. I think he might have been there. And I can't remember if we were there the same year. He was a year before me, but he was just that perfect example of working super hard. You know, like this is what Randy Edsel would preach. You know, you do the right things, you eventually work your way up into the system, and if you have all the raw talent, and we're going to groom you and get you there, and then you go on to the next level. And did 5-6 years with the Bills, and had a great career in the NFL, and was easily one of the best receivers we had. And so that is a great example of great guys doing great things, from going from walk-on to making a career. Donald Thompson, like just so many guys.
Donald, did you see Donald when he first came in?
Yeah, so he was older than me as well. So
you missed when he was real skinny on the bottom.
Compared to the muscle that he had in his upper body, it was like everything is going to look skinny to that. Like the dude was like 4 feet wide with arms, like 40
He's in
inches
Indy
around.
now. Do you keep up with him?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, he's in Indy. He does Ralph's Italian Ice franchises.
I knew he was doing some kind of franchise. I forgot what it was, but that's good. And smart
when he was
guy,
with the Patriots,
guy.
I was talking to him, one point, and I'm like, you stepped in for someone on the Patriots one day. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly it. Like someone got hurt and I'm starting lineman on the Patriots.
Yeah, I know. It's really amazing stuff. I was definitely following the NFL a lot more when all the guys I used to play with were playing, and I was really trying to watch them and cheer for them.
Couldn't name a hockey player today.
No, I mean,
I played hockey. Yeah. A bunch of my friends went pro.
Sure.
Followed it.
Yeah.
They're all, long retired. Their kids are going pro.
Oh yeah. That's
so
cool.
I feel that. So now you're back up and you're looking at your career and knowing you're going to do something different than the NFL. How do you end up in Europe? Like, is it just Alex is like, hey, let's go do this? Or
pretty much like the year before or 2 years before, Rob Lund and DJ Hernandez played in Germany for a little while, and so Alex Polito got the idea like, oh, like they did it, we can do it too. So we started basically, or he said, I'm going to go figure out some teams. If I get a team interested, do you want to come play? And I was like, sure, whatever, bud. Like, I just didn't really think it was going to actually happen. And so a few weeks later, he comes back. He's like, we got a team in Italy and we got a team in Denmark. Denmark pays a little more. You want to go there? And I was like, okay. He's like, but you have to tell him you're a safety. And I was like, okay. And so,
do I have to show him film or no?
They were like, no, I think it's all right. They really wanted him. They needed a D lineman. And they were like, I guess we'll take your walk-on buddy if we have to. And it was just fine. I was like, all right, sweet. Let's go have some fun. I didn't get a ton of playing time at Uconn. I got all 4 special teams and running around and, having fun out there. But I wanted to play receiver again. I wanted to, get back onto defense. Would have been great. I was all-state utility player at Connecticut, so I loved playing defense. But then, you shift your focus and all that was good. So getting back out to Europe was great. And so when I got there, they were like, okay, you're better at receiver, so we'll move you to receiver. And so they did that. And then we won the championship the first year. And then I got league MVP the first year, which was fun. It was great. It's like playing, a little bit more. It's obviously harder than high school ball, but not like
much
the competition. No, not toward the competition of what Uconn was. So it probably felt like what I would guess would be like a D3 program.
Yeah.
But
so had you gone to a NESCAC or something, that's
exactly. That's what I think the feeling of competition level was. Like some of the guys were like
serious, some were joking.
Some were huge, great athletes, and some were like, all right, I'm going to have a cigarette break in between this play series, And so it was high level competition, but they were all there for fun. And like, that's like just a little bit different level of competition.
Did they pay you enough you could live?
They paid us enough to survive and have a bunch of beers and have a good time.
That's it. Like for a 23-year-old kid, could you imagine a better experience?
No, you get to go live abroad. I was also like, why not? Like, you got to take these opportunities when they come, and you just got to go for it.
I'm consistently overwhelmed when students come to me in a total panic about what they're going to do as a senior. Yeah. And it's like, join the fucking Peace Corps.
Yeah,
like,
get out. Go,
do whatever.
And that was,
have fun. Work for free.
And that's exactly it. And I got lucky that opportunity fell into my lap. I got my degree in psych and knew I didn't want to go straight back into grad school. So I was like, got my personal training certification, was working in fitness and doing stuff like that in my hometown. And then Alex called me up and he's like, let's go. So I was like, all right, let's do it. And then we brought Frazier over our second year, Zach Frazier, the Notre Dame transfer, and me and Zach and Polito won a second national championship, and then we went and played in the Euro Cup. So we beat this big German team, and it was like such a lot of fun.
Living the dream,
having fun,
chasing women across Europe, chasing
traveling,
beer.
Me and Alex did the running with the Bulls in Pamplona.
Who won?
The Bulls did not catch us. Yeah, we didn't have to race. I think, but it was a heart pounder, a lot of fun.
So, that's a great point is, and we see this, like, how do you learn to take control of your carear?
Yeah.
Is learn you're not going to die.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're going to figure it out. Like,
exactly.
This is not life or death. Mm-hmm. The first job is not the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So when did you start to think like, hey, next thing?
Yeah. So
how'd you fall into it?
So right before, I obviously shifted into acting and entertainment now, but right before I went to Europe, I was home for that like, I guess it was almost a full year between graduating and then leaving for Europe. And I had taken this public speaking class at Uconn, which for me, I've always been relatively.
That course?
I did not. I took one in high school, and I was atrocious at it. I just started roasting people in my class. That was the only thing I could do.
He's Southbury.
All right, nice, nice.
You didn't take public speaking at UConn?
No, I took it in high school. So
I would have, I would have hoped that roasting my friends would have been like the best outcome. I totally clammed up.
Yeah,
I
that's why I
speak.
started doing it, because I couldn't do that. So I roasted
totally
some kid that I
panicked.
didn't like, and I was like talking about him working at a nursing home or something like that.
Turn it into stand-up. It's like, great.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we have people walk in here that are like amazing, charismatic,
Totally.
storytellers. And like something about the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just like,
And
you can see it disappear.
having like these cameras set up too does it, because there's somebody that is an influencer, thousands or millions of followers, whatever, walks in here, like they're used to the camera being here in their hand, and for whatever reason that is like more of a safety blanket than all of this stuff. It's not even that crazy of a production for those who can't see it, but like it's enough to like get people like deer in the headlights, basically.
Yeah.
And a lot of people freeze up like this, like, when
Right.
you're doing this, you're afraid to do this or be seen doing this, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe I should do, like D'Amelio was talking about it too. Like, I should be doing more of it. Like, I don't do enough of just turn the phone around and I'm in this situation, record it, blast it out on TikTok Live or whatever. But they're different. They're different, totally different experiences.
For sure.
And speaking in front of a live audience, that was where I got over it. Like, and it I think like, geez, man, they're like, all right, you're in the courtroom. And I'm a lawyer. I'm like, I don't do this kind of stuff. And there's 400 criminals behind you, right? Like, after a day of that, you're like, oh, this is easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the thing, is like exposure, getting used to it. You just do it, and then you're all of a sudden less afraid of what it actually is. And
100%.
so I took that public speaking class. I never got over that fear in the class. I left thinking I was going to go into sales with my psychology degree. So I looked in I saw this like ad for a local play. They were casting some people my age, and I was like, oh, all right, like this is a good way. In Connecticut. And this was it was called the Players Theater. Oh, now I forgot. Norwich Players. So it was in Norwich, Southeast Connecticut, and
that's where all great careers start in Norwich, in the Norwich Players group.
It was great. And honestly, like I walked in and I was like, hey, I want to be in your play. And they were like, okay, you're in, because no one else came up to audition. So I was like, sweet, thank you. And so that was that form of like exposure therapy, just putting myself out there, being in that situation, getting afraid, and then getting over it. And I learned pretty quickly that with a little bit of preparation and a good team, you're like a good, just like preparation really is what it was. Once I was prepared, I was fine. I was panicked, but I could actually at least perform or get the job done, even if I had that anxiety still there. And that set the seed for when I was over in Europe. Once I got like thinking like, okay, football's about to be done. What do I want to do? I went back and did another play. And then I was like, let's see how far we can ride this creativity train, because this is kind of new and this is really interesting to me. And so then I kept on trying after that. Went into grad school, that's when I applied to grad schools, and luckily I got into Harvard's program.
Yeah, that's a weird
transition.
That's a weird
Pretty
turn,
quick,
right?
too.
Like,
super weird turn.
You started applying?
I basically had done
Why'd you
2
apply
to
to
3
Harvard?
shows. So it was this weird kind of all or nothing mentality that I had back then, where when I went and played college football, I said, I'm either going to play D1 or I'm not going to play.
Okay.
And that was arrogant.
I did the same thing and
silly.
didn't play.
Yeah. And then I was kind of thinking the same thing. So I didn't know much. I had a great mentor at Flock Theatre in New London, and his name's Darren Wood, and he was helping me with all the material and some of the landscape.
So like real theater people.
Totally, real theater people, really doing
they use the R-E, not the E-R.
Yeah, theatre, like absolutely. Like,
Did you ever like identify with that, like, or did it take a period to identify with that sort?
I always kind of cut against all of the associations with whatever I'm doing. It's this probably thing I gotta figure out. But like when I was playing football at Uconn, I never wore the gear to class. I always wanted to be a regular kid. And then like,
weren't you a little tall? Like,
I was like taller for sure, but not. I'm only 6'3". Like you could blend in with the normal kids at that height. But I would skateboard to class, and I was just like a little bit of like a different. I didn't want to I don't like to fully identify as something. I like to keep it a little open. So then when I was doing theater, I was like, oh, I'm still the athlete trying to do theater, and then when I was doing sports, I was like, oh, I'm the student skater boy doing football, and it was always this little cutting against whatever.
Why do you think that you did that?
I think I don't like to be labeled as something. It's like almost like a stereotype or a shortcut. So people are trying to we'll box you in here, and then this is what we think you are, and then we move forward. It's like, no, check out. There's details in everyone.
But you're also saying you're all or nothing about things too. So which is an interesting dichotomy.
That's right. No, it's this weird dichotomy. So my intentions are all or nothing, but the perception of it is, let's think outside the box a little.
Fair. So is it because you're cool, or is it you know what I mean? You're a little too cool.
I think that it was
because you're managing perceptions, which is, I think people tend to do that naturally, but they don't do a good job of it usually.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's I don't think I was thinking that I was too cool. It was more like I think it was probably coming from insecurity more than anything. So. Which is all kind of
which falls in
up in
that would actually fit, right?
Too cool, yeah.
Because it's like I'm a football player, but I'm not that football player.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not that,
as a guy that played at the end of the bench, like that guy's going to the NHL. He's the number one draft pick.
Yeah.
I'm not that.
Totally.
I can see it.
Totally.
And you already articulated that component. And then you go into theater and you're not that person,
that guy grew up. So I'm a little behind. It's this imposter syndrome as well. So
keep that piece of you that you did feel comfort. I talk to athletes a lot about that as they're moving into the name, image, and likeness content space. Is like, you don't have to put it all out there,
right?
But what you put out there, you have to put all of that.
I get that.
You can't hold back. You can hold back a whole piece of you.
Yep.
But what you put out there, it's boring if you're 70% out. Yeah. That's boring.
Yeah.
Do you feel at all like it was a protection against failure, kind of? Like being able to have yourself in multiple buckets? Like, okay, like if I'm not the best on the best player on the entire team, or if I'm not the most convincing actor or whatever it happens to be. Do you think it's sort of that?
I think it's a mixed bag, right? There are fears that you're aware that you have. Like for me, it was, okay, I am aware that I am afraid of public speaking right now. Let's attack that. And then there's fears that are slipperier than that, and they kind of hide around in your subconscious. And you don't really exactly know why you're afraid of something. You just kind of move on. Yep. And I think there could have been the elements of that where it was like a fear of failure. Absolutely. Like you kind of, I threw myself into a situation. This is what makes it a little different, I guess, is because I was always an underdog. I already kind of knew, at least through football, that I was already batting above my average, right? I was already doing way better than I expected and anticipated. So the failure was like, okay, if I fail, what now? I've already done super well. I'm happy, So it was kind of that.
Yeah, but you got to get to that point to begin with, where you feel comfortable with okay, I failed. Because otherwise your ego's all attached to it to begin with. And if you don't have some sort of wins,
that's a similar piece here.
For sure.
If this show works out really, really well and goes really far, fantastic.
Right.
But it's not the success of the show is totally uncorrelated to the success of David Noble.
Absolutely. Well,
right? I'm successful as a person, as an educator, as this, as that. This is just a new place, so that the ability to fail allows me to jump deeper in the pool.
But the feeling is what people get hung up on. So it is hard to separate what you're putting out there failing and what you failing. It is hard to feel that separation. And so that is what kind of
Are you successful today?
I would say I've set a bar higher than where I am today. So I'm considering myself working toward that success. I've been successful in a lot of the projects that I've done, the people that I've met, the things that I've learned, all of that. I count those all as wins, but I'm still not competing for the national championship like I'd like to be. And so I call that the road to success versus actually feeling what I consider to be successful.
Where did you set the bar? Is it I'm going to take home an Oscar? I'm going to be standing there? Or?
I set the bar as, for me, making my living full-time as a performer and or producer. And so I'm not there yet. I'm going to hope to be there soon. And that is the first bar. So once I get to that bar, and I'm not wrapping up like my entire like self-worth in my achievement, it is more like I'm going to explore the world. And once exploration feels too tiring, then we can kind of figure out some new avenue. And I set and keep pushing that bar because I am achievement oriented, but I'm not wrapping my entire validation up in my achievements. It's more about my adventure.
You could be like a psychology graduate assistant here.
I mean, that was
achievement orientation. That's
that was definitely
fancy
like
words.
One of my paths when I was back in studying in psych. I was like, sports psychology, really getting into research psychology through sports and through achievement and through like the psychology behind like competition and healthy competition versus unhealthy competition, and all of that intrigued me a ton. And so like I'm always kind of looking for that in my day-to-day interactions and also in my like goal setting and things like that. So it's kind of like one of those things where whatever you're interested paints the lens of what you're perceiving in your reality. So if you're super interested in business, you're going to be painting your lens of your perception in that business. Or if you're super interested in human behavior, which I am, I'm like, okay, let's paint it in. Like, how do we see this from a human behavior lens?
What part of human behavior really gets you going?
Well, I guess the complexity of it, right? It is managing these dynamics with just all these complex different human beings, and that's super exciting to me. It's like a math equation with no real answer, right? And
so is that why you want to be a producer?
That's more why I got into acting. Producing was
necessity,
opportunity, and I'm still trying to create more opportunities from that. But it was, so I guess a borderline necessity too. I had a buddy who's really passionate filmmaker, really talented guy. He's like, I want to make this movie. We need an actor, and I also need help making it. So I was like, you got me. It's the pandemic. The government's given us some checks. So at that point, I was living in a van. I'd left New York City when the pandemic hit, threw a bed in the back of a minivan, and just hit the road and said, it's time for an adventure. So I did 2 months on the road to get down to LA. And then when I got to LA, I lived in that van outside of a different buddy's house for a New London kid, for, I guess it was 2 years. 2 years I slept in that van, which was great. I didn't find it to be
that's homeless.
Anything other than a choice. No, I would not.
That's homeless.
No, there's homeless where like, it's a real struggle. And then there's like, I'm taking the resources I have and I'm putting them into something else other than rent. I could have then said, I'm not going to make this movie and I'm going to live comfortably and have rent and do that. But I was making an active choice to take my resources that I had and what I had to then shift it into something that wasn't rent.
So then that word is called sacrifice.
Sacrifice. It's making a sacrifice. It's walk-ons. We bleed sacrifice. You know, it's in my DNA.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, well, you won't ever get there if you. So the part of human behavior that's ultimately like driving my knowledge thirst.
Yeah.
What I really care about human behavior is what makes someone so incredibly successful. And there is no element there. I've never met anyone that's been successful that hasn't taken something really, really fundamentally what most people would view as basic need and sacrifice that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the amalgamation of all the things you need, and sacrifice is absolutely sacrifice, vulnerability, confidence. It's just crazy amalgamation of all these things.
Thinking about it in the moment of now, sacrificing an apartment for a little bit of time while having some fun and an adventure is much less costly than sacrificing your family.
Yeah, right.
Which many people sacrifice their family for success.
Absolutely. Or the other way around, it's like, depending on your value hierarchy, what you value the most, what are you going to sacrifice on that chain? So like for me, I don't have a family yet, but I assume that when I do, I'm going to value them over the success of my endeavors, which is a potential weakness as far as like accomplishment goes. But I then say, I accomplished raising a great family. And that to me is more valuable than being some superstar producer. At the end of the day, if you have to, again, it's different sacrifice for different value hierarchy. It's like, how are you going to figure that out? What direction are you going to point your North Star at?
It is very hard to be an incredibly successful mother
Super hard.
and
Yeah.
a successful career person?
It is. It's hard.
I watch people try it.
It's super hard. It's super hard to, I mean, even harder for women, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Like
I
hard
think
for
there's
anybody, but hard for women.
Just taking away the norms of like life, like
Yeah.
the expectations
Yeah.
of, or like one of the key functions of the male in a relationship is to bring home the bacon.
Mm-hmm.
How did Dash get born?
Yeah. So,
Like was it your buddy just asking you? I know that's your story here, but like, what
Yeah.
really brought Dash? And you were like, yeah, I'm fucking doing that.
yeah. So, my buddy Sean Perry, who was the writer-director on the piece, we were both living here in New York City pre-pandemic. We were trying to produce a comedy about a young group of golfers that inherit a golf course, but then want to do it more like the redneck way. So it's like very what's the trash company that they have the Open where it's kind of like this free for
Waste
all.
management.
Waste
Waste
management. It's
management
like,
Open, yeah.
It's like that, but high school level, and then they turn this
Phoenix
golf
Open.
course. Yeah,
The Phoenix Open.
they turned it into like essentially this like obstacle course. Like there's either way. The point is, we tried to make that movie, then the pandemic hit, so we didn't get that off the ground. And so once we were both out,
What
in
was
LA,
holding it back? Was it was it actually the pandemic, or you're trying to raise money?
we were trying to raise money. It was our first time trying to raise money. My first time trying to figure out and navigate the landscape of entertainment. Like I had been going to auditions and singing.
What surprised you the
musical
most
songs.
on that?
The complexity and chaos, and really, this is the first time that I was like, this is a business. This is not entertainment anymore. This is a full-on multi-billion-dollar business, and now I'm the lowest of the low, competing against everything above. And so I have to learn that structure, learn that navigation, learn those people, learn everything.
Well, it's both, right? It's the entertainment business.
I would say yes. And what I learned was that the story or the quality of the story isn't always the most important thing. It's more, what the consumer needs is often that drives, what's important.
The demographics of who you build for.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a comedy is tough right now because it's not worth putting $50 million into a comedy movie.
Yeah. And that'll
Right?
swing.
Like
It's a pendulum for sure. I think that right now, like what you see a lot of is there's a system, there's a path, there's a road, and it works for a reason. But then there's always the people who are cutting against that traditional path and then squeaking through in a new creative way, which is, creativity at the end of the day is I think the more you can kind of lean into that, I think it gives you a better chance, or at least more fun along the route. Like I'm going to have more fun thinking outside the box, creating a story that is creative rather than just doing the exact thing that the industry wants and needs in this very, very exact moment. I'd rather flex my creative skills and not get there versus getting there in a way that I didn't want to get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're too good to do what you need to do.
No, it's not about, I still need to learn and fail and but I have to figure it out. I'm still that walk-on who's like, okay, I'm in a situation where everyone else knows what they're doing a lot better than I do, but I'd still like to do it my way given the chance, or I'd still like to think outside the box given that opportunity.
What's your way?
My way is collaborating with passionate people and that are focused more on the story or the creativity and doing things their way. So I'm like a pimp. I'm the best kind of pimp as a producer. I just want to find the people that want to do their
feelings.
thing.
You're a pimp with feelings. Yeah.
That's right. I care about my people.
The real question then would be like, who's your bottom? But I think really what's more interesting about that is it's not about not being willing to do what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
It's about looking at it and recognizing that you need a different pathway to success than somebody with all the traditional resources in pipeline.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And that was what me and my buddy Sean were faced with. It's like, what's the reality of the situation? Where do we want to be in 6 months to a year? Okay, we have no connections. We have almost no resources, and we don't know any crew or anything like that. So he said he was driving out to LA and he said, I got this idea for this one take feature where we mount the camera on the hood of a car and we shoot all over Hollywood telling a story about an Uber driver. And he's like, I think I can pull it off. And when something feels right and it feels good and you have that creative spark, he knocked that script out in 2 weeks. And then we made a couple polishes after that. And then we were starting to produce, and we were just getting all the pieces together, seeing what we needed to do and starting to meet people. And so it was this like, that vision of like where we need to get, it becomes super clear when it's like full. And so we were able to then just kind of move forward pretty quickly on meeting a couple of people and getting the thing made. But it took us some time to do that. But yeah, that like intention and that.
What
that
kind of people were you
focus.
looking for?
So there was 11 actors in the movie. He had a friend from Penn State. He was a Penn State guy. He had a friend from Penn State who was also making movies out there. And all of the like people in our circle are like indie filmmakers who are, working, hustling super hard to try to make it up to a level that is selling movies for bigger money, and so we were able to meet a few of those people and say, hey, we got this project, and grab a couple of actors and say, hey, you guys interested in this? And I think it was luck and opportunity as well, because the pandemic was going on, so actors were not working. And we brought them this like kind of cool, crazy idea of a one-take feature film, and they were like, oh yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. And it kind of took the approach of a theater piece because you needed to rehearse and you only had one try. So it was like a moving stage all through Hollywood. And so we approached it with rehearsals, and most actors love to act, and you get to do that more in a rehearsal process. You get to work on the scenes with people, and you get to, like dive into the characters a little more, and versus like the traditional on-set experience, you're kind of like, okay, everything's set up, all the million pieces are ready to go. You get one or two chances to do this scene. And so it's a very different approach. And so I think a lot of the actors were, if they had a background in theater, they were like super excited to get back into that rehearsal.
So all the theater geeks were attracted to this, huh?
I think so. And unfortunately, we only auditioned one role, and the rest were just people we knew who were talented and had some theater backgrounds and had a few weeks off to play around with us.
And so, how long was the rehearsal process? Yeah.
So, Sean and I had to like build the route for a couple of, I guess like on and off for a couple of weeks, closer to a month of like actually being out there, driving through Hollywood, timing up like, okay, this stop sign or this stoplight is 30 seconds long, and then the next one's going to be 45. But on average, it's going to take us 4.5 minutes to get through this section of the route. And the scene is coming down to like, every time we read through, it's about 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So we have to figure out how to cut 15 seconds out of this route or add 15 seconds to the scene. So like matching up the route and the timing took a long time to really get that.
So that's solid. You and Sean in the car, yep, driving it.
In the minivan, Diet Cokes and French fries, and let's go. And just reading through and timing and making notes and going over. Okay, this route, we want to go this way. Okay. And then we'd get there and be like, okay, there's a break in the scene here where we're parked. This is actually a super exciting scene, so we want a lot of big lights from the atmosphere. So we need to move this location to Hollywood Boulevard. Oh, this is a super dark scene. We got to find a back alley that's close by, so there's not a lot of light bouncing off. So like a lot of those choices as well, factoring into actually completing the route on time. And then so like all of that down to the inch, because you can see reflections off of the windshield. So like when we're pulling up on Hollywood Boulevard, we wanted to see that reflection of the El Capitan Theater. And so like I have to hit that. I'm driving the car, which is, I wasn't supposed to do that. Sorry, SAG-AFTRA, but we did it. It's okay. And we driving the car, it's supposed to be trailered. And so I have to land that within the inch, or else the whole like shift is going to be off, or like the reflection will be covering my face, which you can't have. So you have to really navigate and like narrowly hit that window. So it was a lot of planning. Once we figured most of that out, we got the rehearsals in for the actors. And I think it was like 12 days, 14 days, leading up to the 3 days of shooting. That's great.
But one run, 3 days, one run.
Yes, yeah, it's all one take. And so we had the first night, we had some technical issues where the camera was mounted on the hood, and we had like ratchet straps and some duct tape and some like suction mounts and like all these things. And
SAG sent those, right?
Totally. Yeah. They were, no, I mean, we rented the camera. It was this, the whole setup was probably like 30 pounds. It's a Cook anamorphic lens, so like this big around and it's like this long, 32 millimeter, huge anamorphic lens, and then a red helium 8K, which is a pretty solid, huge camera as well. And we had wired into the car battery so it could run for 2 hours continuously.
Dude,
And-
massive respect for the car battery.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
sick.
and this is my buddy.
Who did that? Yeah.
My buddy, well, Sean's a smart guy. He's a very smart guy, and figured out he could rig that up.
He could have just fried that camera right then. So
Yeah.
good thing he is a smart guy, because those are not cheap cameras.
And you get insurance, you know. But yeah, you take some risks, and you know, hopefully you're not too stupid to really put yourself in too big of a
You
hole.
got to be kind of stupid, though.
Yeah, you
right?
have to
to
be
do this, to do what you're explaining. You got
Yeah.
to be kind of stupid, but it's like it's a. You can't be risk averse. You have to be open to risk, but
Totally.
also you need to mitigate as you're going.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is like, you know, these parallels between stupidity and risk, and I think it's not as it's like more of unawareness rather than stupidity. Like you didn't know what was going to go wrong.
naivete.
Yeah, the naivete.
Yeah, it's like you're
it's more than
if you're
stupidity.
naive, yeah.
You can kind of just be
Post
like,
hoc,
"All right."
it's stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the moment, it's naive.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
yeah.
In the
you end up-
moment, it's scary.
Yeah,
Is what it
super
is. So
scary,
I
yeah.
think it's mostly like
You're
stupidity,
scared?
then like to be smart enough,
Yeah.
and then lucky enough.
Right. It is this crazy combination of all that.
Yeah.
And
That's sick. That's
yeah.
so awesome. Do you have like a picture of that or something that I can
Of
put
the,
up of the camera into
yeah,
the
it's deep in my
car battery?
And we
Yeah,
also
I
have
would
the
need that.
Instagram, so I think we posted a few things on Dash Feature Film.
The
is
people need to
Instagram.
see this.
Yeah. So
Dash feature
And the
film.
movie, of course. But
yeah. And we learned
Dash feature film for the clip
Instagram.
editor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this because it really is kind of an insane concept, but it's also, you know, does it work if the pandemic isn't happening? Are you able to pull this off?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so. I would say that if it wasn't for the pandemic, we wouldn't maybe have had that perception of doing something with nothing. Maybe we would have not had to think so far out of the box because it's just a different reality. You just live in a different reality. You set different goals. You know, this is the perception I have. So
do
I think
the people show up?
Huh?
Do the people show up if the pandemic isn't happening? Because I know you said something to the effect of,
Right,
it was
maybe
easier
not.
to convince them.
Totally. I think
for a
like, they
couple
would have been
week
like,
period.
no, I'm working on other projects. This is something more legitimate. Graciously, our actors worked for deferred pay, meaning like if we sold the movie, they would get their money for their hourly work. So essentially they were working for free because it's like 1%.
Yeah, usually you don't sell
1% of indie films sell or make their money back. And so we were proud enough to be able to do that, which you asked me before about like, am I successful? I think that was something I considered greatly successful.
that's a milestone,
Very
right?
happy about that and very proud to be able to be a producer who got to pay their actors even after deferred pay and things like that. And
The girl across the street at their coffee, she's at their coffee,
all right. So-
right? Like
Yeah.
she wants to be there.
Totally.
Say, I produced a film, I sold the film. That's
Yeah.
where she wants to be.
Right.
She's not there.
No, and it's very hard, and we got very lucky. Plus, we were also that combination of smart and talented and risky and all that
Sacrifice and all
sacrifice. It's just where you are, and where we are, and we then we learned. After that, we thought okay, we made a movie. We were the 1%. We sold it for a profit. We got into festivals.
We'll be in
We're
the
like-
next. It'd be easy the next
We
time.
thought we just give the script out to the next, distributor and they'll greenlight it and give us $1 million. And then they wouldn't even answer our emails. So
Yeah.
it's you get humbled real fast. And then so it's this 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, or 1 step back, or whatever it looks like,
The parallels between entrepreneurship and entertainment are everywhere.
Yeah.
You always, if you weren't a little bit, as the kids say, delulu, you wouldn't, right? Like you wouldn't.
Yeah,
that
no.
was very Chris. That was very
Yeah.
Chris. You wouldn't ever do it,
Yeah.
right? Like they in the psychology of entrepreneurship, they call it overconfident, which is really a stupid statement.
Yeah.
I call it audacious. Like if you don't have the audacity to think you can do what
Right.
other people clearly can't do
Yeah.
because the data tells you can't do it,
Right.
you won't achieve it.
Yeah. no.
How can you be overconfident when, I feel like most people that are doing those things are doing it to prove to themselves mainly and then to other people optically that they can do it?
Yeah. So, but you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and they're telling you they're going to succeed, when all the data says they won't. And that's the overconfidence. If you don't have that, you won't take the steps. Like if most people post hoc will always with 100% accuracy say, well, I didn't think I would succeed. And then, they talk about it like that. But in the moment, no, this is a good idea. Like this should happen. This is a good script. Yeah. I can make $1 million, right? Like those things, you have to believe them at some level, even though they're not true statistically.
Statistically, yeah.
Right. And so I think it's just an audacity. You have to believe you're the one out of 100.
The 1%. Yeah. You're going to make the project that's going to work. Like, okay. And I also like,
when you post on TikTok, despite the 1 billion posts that don't go viral, this is the one that will.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some piece to that.
I agree. And I think that personally, I'm such a big team guy because I don't think I have that belief all the time. I think it wavers in me. And I think I don't think I'm necessarily the 1% who's got something better than everything else. I think that I'm like, maybe my 1% or my thing is team building, is finding good guys who are really great at their job and then getting them the resources they need in order to grow their vision. And so that's what my deepest producer sort of heartstrings are coming from, allowing other people, other creatives to build out their team so that they can create their work and then they can be that 1%. And so it's a different way of coming about it personally, I guess.
Do you think Dash is a good film?
I think Dash is a good film, for sure. I think Dash is a...
When you watch it,
yeah,
what's your feeling? What does it evoke in you?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to say that because I also have to watch myself act for 2 hours. And
I fully get it.
Like, really,
the odds of you watching this conversation later is very low.
And then, yeah, right.
Your mom might, but sure. Like you will be like, no, I can't do it.
I'm good. And the other like layer of that is like throughout that movie, I go through a considerable amount of physical pain. So I'm acting out a ton of physical pain, and a lot of like that was exhausting to be mentally driving the car, managing 2 hours of a script with the timing, and then also adding a level of physical pain on top of it. You can see by the end of that movie, I am actually physically tired. I'm not acting. I'm dying. I'm like, I got nothing left. This has been a football game of
which it would be in real life.
Exactly. So, and it was. And so then when I watch the movie, I relive all of that feeling. It weighs me down. It pulls me. I was like, we couldn't have done another day if we had 4 days to try. And so like when I rewatch that, there's this element of like, oh, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. But then like all of that removed, I see what we were able to accomplish, and I'm very proud of our creative storytelling abilities. I'm also incredibly judgmental, like everyone is of their art. Oh, we learned like, oh yeah, that first, basically we should have had more excitement out of the gate. We thought a stagnant 8-minute scene was going to be like really engaging.
A slow burn, right?
And that's what I told you it was. It's like, hey, now we've realized it's a slow burn. It's not as engaging as we thought it was going to be. And so we had to just basically say, no cuts though. Can't change it now. Let's move forward. This is the things you learn. And that's part of taking risk and learning and growing. And so like when we go into the next project, we'll just maybe focus a little more on a hook, and that'll be a little better for us.
Do you think the best part of that is what you learned?
I think it's the most valuable at this point is, for us, it's the learning experiences and the actual doing and failing or doing and succeeding. The learning is the value at this point. I haven't gained enough leverage for that to be the value. So now all I do have is, the learning and the experience.
That's a good point. One of the things I keep coming back to is like, some of us with enough repetitions in the hopper just accept that there's going to be failure all along the way. This episode's going to suck.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just what it is. This thing is not going to hit. This is not going to work. Like, that you're not thinking about the minute components and analyzing at that level, because that's the analysis paralysis, right? Like, I think that goes away with repetition analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Like, because you'll figure it the fuck out.
Exactly. I think that's the repetition is allowing you to really understand where your focus needs to be. And it does say, oh, I don't have to worry about these things that are occupying my attention. And I learned a lot about that through acting training, through actually learning lines and being up on stage and being in the moment, and from being a novice to saying like, I'm focusing on like some little thing my foot is doing, and that's not important at all. It's really about like being in the moment and like listening to your partner and things like that. So like anytime you approach something new, your body's not going to be focusing on any of the right things. Over time, you get that repetition, and all of a sudden people figure out, where is that attention? Where does my attention need to be? What am I actually truly trying to do, and what am I actually focusing on? It's like that in football too. Like, you have to, you line up on receiver and like, you're like, oh, my toe's right on the line. That's good. I learned that in high school. And then like, no, you shouldn't be thinking about that at all. You can't, like, that's not a good way to start any play. And like, you just have to like, you have to know what you should be focusing on. You do that through repetition.
Coach Saban explained it one time as simply being over your 2 feet.
Yeah. All right.
That's how you play football. You play football over your 2 feet in the moment for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
There's no play before and there's no play after. There's simply this play. And the goal every single play is just to kick the other guy's ass.
Yeah.
You have one job,
and
it's to kick that guy's ass. Your teammate has another job to kick his guy's ass.
Yeah.
And like, if you all do that and play in the moment,
right,
you will win 97% of your games.
Absolutely. Getting the value of having your entire team not thinking about what they're doing and reacting is incredibly powerful. And that is when I think the real magic happens, is when you're not consciously thinking about what you're doing, you're unconsciously performing or playing or doing what you're doing without thinking, without analyzing, just going full speed. That's when creativity's happening. That's when like intensity, pushing the boundaries of capabilities, all of that is happening when you're just like living and relying on all the practice that you've done.
How do you sell this project? Now, you know, I think a lot of what we're doing here is for people that want to be on the other side of one milestone or another, right? And so that became a big milestone. Once you made the film, now you got to go get it into, how did you accomplish those pieces?
Yeah, so we made the film. We set a goal to get into festivals. Again, everything's sort of like hierarchical in the world, in business and things like that. So you set your goal for Sundance and you say, okay, this is the best in the country. We're going to be premiering at Sundance. You don't get into
Sundance is a pretty closed circuit.
Yeah, it is. And you learn that too. It's like, oh, it's not a meritocracy at the end of the day. And so then you get frustrated for a while, and then you got to like, okay, how do I refigure out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to get myself and where I'm going to, find festivals that are meritocracy based or like, or
at least you can find someone you know, right?
Yeah. Totally. And things like that. And so we did get some great advice from a couple of people who have been in the industry a lot longer than us. And they were like, you guys got a great product right now, but it's unpolished. They said, no one will buy a beautiful painting that is dusty, but they will buy a polished piece of crap. And so they're like, all right, that's the learning. They're like, okay, we need to polish this. And it's not that it's a piece of crap, but they said, you actually have a great product, but it's unpolished. So go polish your thing. Then, we needed to figure out how to find a little money, working at restaurants and working tutoring. And okay, we gotta raise more money. We gotta get more things added onto the movie.
What's polished? Like, what does polished look like?
Polished was color, better sound design, and a score. We thought we were going to be edgy and have no score, and it was going to be like cool.
Is there is that all stuff that you could get pretty much to 100% in post, or were there mistakes made in the actual production of it that you couldn't like remedy and polish, so to speak?
The storytelling mistakes we couldn't fix because that was no cuts. That was the agreement that we made with ourselves. The things we could fix were this
film, by the way, had the best cuts you've ever seen.
Because there was
no cuts.
No cuts. Yeah. So it was like the things that we could control, we try the best as we can to control it. Things that are out of our control, just live with it, move forward. So we were able to hire a great composer, great sound guy, And then we got some help from a color person. We didn't have to hire them directly because Sean is he's a jack of all trades. He's Swiss Army knife. He can do special effects. He can do coloring. But
It's like marrying a lawyer.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Is there? I guess if Sundance had come to you and said like, "This is great," like not that this is how it would have worked, but if you would have had the opportunity to get placement there, and they're like, but you got to make cuts or you got to change it in a way that you vowed, like, I'm not doing it. What is that? What's the decision there? Like,
I'm selling my soul to the devil here. You know, I can ride principle for a while, but I also understand shooting yourself in the foot, which I literally do in the movie. So I was like, I need to learn from the movie and what I just acted out that you have to kind of take opportunities and swallow your pride a little bit.
Sebastian Janikowski decided to spend the night before the national championship out doing like Molly or ecstasy and like partying.
Yeah.
And Bobby Bowden said, well, I ain't going to cut my nose off to spite my face.
Yeah.
And Sebastian Janikowski would be playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he's a kicker.
Absolutely.
He's a kicker.
Yeah.
He don't need to be sitting around waiting.
If I trust him to make that,
he's the only one that ever made the kick for Bobby. So, you know.
There you go. Yeah. And so that's good leadership too. I mean, not always the way you want to draw it up, but you got to live with what you got and make that right decision. And hopefully you can teach that player next time to do the right thing. But like, you know,
or it worked, right?
Yeah,
and I think I think, you know, at Sundance you do it, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a level where you're like, no, we're not doing it.
And that was it. It was like, yeah, we want to stay true to what our original intention was the best we can. So we did that. We stuck to the one take because personally, one of the nights, the first or the second night or the third night, was like a great opening scene. It was just a little bit more exciting with the acting and the palpitation. Just give it a little extra bump. And so we were like, should we cut and like add that first scene to the rest of the second movie? And what do we do? And we were just like, no, just stick to your guns, which is again just a creative choice, not really having to figure out, you know, like do we give up our principles or something like that. But yeah, so we ended up getting into a couple B-tier festivals, which we're really proud of. Dances with Films, CineQuest, Beyond Fest, which are great festivals. Really happy to be part of those. Met really great filmmakers. Got to see a couple of really great films there as well, which was a win. It was a huge win for us.
Yeah.
And that helped us get a distributor, and then the distributor had us on help marketing and getting that film out on all the streaming platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was great.
And so
start to finish.
So now you're massively wealthy.
So wealthy. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, right.
Just huge van now, king bed in the
Hollywood.
Yeah, no, not at all. It was a great success, and we were able to turn a profit for the film, but the sweat equity was real.
Yeah,
and that's it. I'm still hoping to then, like I said earlier, like what my measure of success would be, making full-time work as a producer, and continuing to grow on that.
Where do you go from here?
Our second film with my buddy Sean. I still don't want to give up on the acting fully, so I'm still out there doing acting projects as just an actor, but also wanting to, like I said, we're trying to make another movie. This is it's called Cold Blood. It's about a couple of West Virginia coal miners who are out of work. They pull off a heist.
Are you going in as the Zoolander here, or
exactly,
or is this your production?
I am going in as the producer first. If there isn't a role that is like for me,
you don't fit the West Virginia.
I'm not that
coal
type.
miner.
I can, I might be able to like grow the beard out or something like that.
I don't think so.
But no, I don't give off that vibe.
Yeah.
And then so
you like the script.
We do. We love the script. And right now we're doing one final re-edit of the script. There's that humbling process of like I talked about before, where you had a relative measure of success. We leveled up in our first film. And then it's hard to judge how many levels you just jumped. So we assumed that we were going to be able to pre-package a film and get some money from a distributor and get a distribution deal, so then we can bring that money to talent, and then that talent will sign on, and then we'll be able to raise money because we'll have this film half packaged, and we'll be able to, and you just find out very quickly that amidst an actor's strike and huge cutbacks inside of a very large industry, like there aren't a lot of opportunities for the new filmmakers. There aren't even a lot of opportunities for the established
Existing
filmmakers.
ones, yeah.
So you're like, okay, how do we reestablish what we can do with what we have? Brought it right back to our selves and say, okay, this is it. We got to figure out how to make this movie for a smaller budget with the resources we have. And that's what we want to do at the end of the day is make movies. We don't want to sit around in packaging hell for 4 years. So
Yeah.
we are doing our final rewrite right now, going through, bringing the budget back down to something manageable. And then we're going to fundraise, cast, make the thing, send it out. Do the whole journey again.
Do it again.
Do it again. Yeah.
There you go.
Do it again.
What did you learn last time that's helped this time?
Yeah, I think a lot of things. I mean, it's really hard to kind of, it's like you learn about the business, you learn about your storytelling abilities, you learn about who you can rely on in the industry and things like that. Your team, who are great assets, which fortunately almost everyone we worked with was a very good asset, and that's a lot of good people out there. It's something that's something that I learned too. It's like when you're on the outside of like what is going on, you assume like you just like paint a picture of what they are, and then you meet some great people who are doing that thing, and you're like, oh, that's why they're doing well. They're great people, and you're like, oh, that's huge learning. Kind of casts away some of those negative perceptions and allows you to be excited about moving forward and meeting new people and meeting people who are working and growing. So yeah, learned a ton. Insane.
Think the world's ending?
Some days I do. Some days I do. I feel like it's a pendulum swing. I don't think anything's really going to end. I think that things will get hard for a little while in certain areas, and I think that they're going to swing back to getting better.
Is that your day-to-day approach?
What
if today's a bad day, tomorrow might be better,
or
it's going to keep getting a little worse. I just got to run to the suck.
Yeah, there's the feeling of what it feels like to me is, the truck is stuck in the mud and you're just spinning those tires, and no matter how hard you hit the gas, you're not going anywhere. There's the feeling of that, and then there's the reality of it where I take away the emotionality and I'm like, okay, what is actually going on? How do I actually like draw out the progress that I have made, and what are the resources that I do have, and what are the people that I do know, and how do I leverage that into then creating something just a little bit step further? Now I'm like, oh, I'm not in the mud. I'm actually moving. I'm moving. I can see that now. But some of the days the feeling is very overwhelming to the perception of how things are going. So I have to take the time to say, oh, a little bit Zen moment or something, which I don't actually meditate, but I probably should, is to get myself out of that emotional feeling and get into the rationality.
That's way too healthy. Like I would suggest like there's booze, there's cocaine, there's all those things. You can find those and like
absolutely,
hookers, just dive into it.
And
that's in all seriousness, like, where do you see yourself?
Good question.
Where do you just see yourself? Like I ask this question almost to everybody, and it's like, they're so afraid to answer it.
Yeah. And I think the truth
Do you see yourself with the
is,
gold trophy up there someday?
I wouldn't hate it. That's for sure.
Can you see it?
I see it as the chances of it are small.
Yeah,
but I see that the opportunity is there. And it's just about...
You're in the game.
I'm in the game. I'm like so far back, but I'm in the game. There's a million things that have to go right. And then sometimes they do.
When you're playing in the corporate world, in the business world, like you get that first poker chip and you think you've accomplished something.
Yeah.
And what you have to repeatedly tell yourself is, I'm in the game now. And I have to keep that chip, but I need to add more.
Right.
And how do I do that? And how do I do that? And the point I think you really hit on in that feeling of being stuck is it's not linear.
Yeah.
It's lockstep oftentimes.
Totally.
And, I pull back again to where you said, like, I don't know where we got to.
Yeah.
Well, you get back out there and you find it out, right?
Figure it out.
Every time you level up, you find it out.
Totally. And it is this continual vulnerability of putting yourself out there. You when you're betting, you have to bet what you won, and you have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself in another risky position in order to potentially level up again, emotionally and physically. It's like, all right, I'm spending too much on rent again. Looks like I'm moving back into the van. All right, this is what we have. Got to make another sacrifice. And I'm not actually doing that this time.
Right.
but that's the same metaphor
Shit,
for
man.
it.
Yeah, like we got to like get off of van life.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, I loved it.
Maybe
I
like
really loved
upgrade
it.
to the the silver trailer thing.
Oh yeah, what are they called? The streamliners.
Streamliners,
Those are high class. High class.
We'll start with a double wide.
Yeah.
That's life.
It is life. And fortunately, these sacrifices that I was making also felt like learning experiences, but also were really gratifying and fun. I really enjoyed doing that whole thing. Like I was not, there were times when I was like, oh yeah, it would be nice to have like my own bed in my own room. But I was like, no, I'm enjoying this. I'm not doing too much that I don't want to do. So I was fortunate enough to enjoy the sacrifice as
What's the best part of being Alex?
Oh, good question. Having some friends, living near the beach.
That's kind of stupid
Playing-
answer.
About being Alex?
Yeah, being
Or
Alex. Like, what's the
from
best part?
My
Yeah,
perspective,
yeah.
it is like the time I get to spend with people. But if I like,
That's what you value.
absolutely, that's hands down, like top of the chart. Spending time with people, quality time, whether that be through work or whether that be through fun and just relaxing and things like that. It is about the relationships for me at the end of the day and having good quality ones. And I almost feel a little too spread thin. Like I have so many people I want to spend so much time with. And now some of them are in LA and some are in Connecticut, some are in New York and all over the country. It's just
What you
They'll
need
come
to do
back.
is publicly list them out in order of how much you want to spend time with them, and don't worry, you'll thin the herd by doing that.
yeah. I'm just not interested in thinning the herd.
Yeah,
I want to be multiple places at once. So that's
you can't.
answering your question.
That-
as
yeah,
much
that's
as I
that's
think
a
you
that's
wanted
a
to. It's like
that's the
word.
sacrifice you have
Yeah.
to make.
For sure. For
So,
sure.
well, thanks, Alex.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
I think you have hit a milestone that most people will never get to,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't getting into Harvard.
Yeah, that was a step along the way, and hopefully, that next milestone that most people don't get to will be on the horizon, and it's been quite a journey, and I'm hoping that it keeps going, and I think it will.
Yeah, I mean, you get to determine that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.